The early morning fog clung to the rolling fields of Emma's family farm like a soft, misty blanket. The dew-coated wheat swayed gently under the faint light of dawn, casting long shadows that stretched toward the horizon. Emma, a curious and fearless 8-year-old, loved this quiet hour before the world fully woke up. Today, however, something felt different. A soft, almost imperceptible sound teased her ears, a faint whimper, like a cry for help. Emma's small feet patted softly over the damp earth as she moved closer to the edge of the woods bordering the field. Her breath fogged in the cool air, and her heart beat faster with each step. The whimpering grew louder, desperate yet gentle. She pushed aside a curtain of hanging vines and spotted two small shapes curled beneath a large bush. The creatures were dirty and thin, their fur matted with mud and leaves. At first glance, they looked like puppies, but there was something about them that didn't quite fit. Their ears were unusually large, and their eyes were wide and almost too reflective in the dim light. Emma's worry outweighed her confusion. She crouched down and whispered, "Don't be scared. I'm here to help." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small packet of crackers she had saved from breakfast. One of the creatures cautiously sniffed the air but didn't move. The other shivered and lifted its head to look at her with a strange intelligence in its gaze. Emma's throat tightened. "We have to tell Mom and Dad," she said aloud. Bounding back toward the farmhouse, Emma's legs pumped with urgency. She burst into the kitchen where her mother was brewing coffee and her father was reading the morning paper. "There are puppies outside. They're hurt," she exclaimed. Her father sighed but set down the paper. "All right, Emma, let's go see." Together, they followed her back to the edge of the woods. When they arrived, the creatures were still there, eyes tracking their approach. Emma's mother knelt down, gently brushing some mud off one of them. "They look abandoned, but these don't seem like normal dogs," she murmured. Jake, Emma's older brother, joined them as well. He was skeptical. "Maybe someone left them here as a prank," he said, but when he knelt beside them, the hairs on his arms prickled. "These things, they feel different," he muttered, stepping back. Emma wrapped a blanket around the creatures and carried them to the barn, a warm, quiet place away from the chill of the morning. Her parents prepared a shallow dish of warm milk and some scraps of chicken, hoping to coax the creatures to eat. But they remained silent, watching with wide eyes that seemed too alert, too knowing. That night, as the family gathered around the fireplace, Emma lay awake in her room. She thought about the creatures. Were they really dogs? Or something else? The soft rustle of the wind outside mingled with the distant calls of owls. Somewhere in the barn, the creatures remained perfectly still, their eyes reflecting the moonlight that streamed through the cracks in the wood. Emma's thoughts wandered to stories she had heard about strange animals found in the wild, animals that didn't quite belong to this world. She pulled her blanket closer and whispered to herself, "I'll protect you." Outside, the fog thickened again, swallowing the fields and hiding secrets waiting to be uncovered. The next morning dawned crisp and bright, with sunlight filtering through the kitchen window in golden slants. Emma was up early again, excitement and worry tangled in her chest as she hurried down to the barn. She found Luma and Leo, her names for the two creatures, huddled together on the pile of old hay. Their eyes were still wide and watchful, but they didn't whimper or move much. Emma set down a bowl of warm milk, hoping they'd drink, but they only sniffed and then backed away. Her mother appeared behind her, wiping her hands on a towel. "They don't look well," she said softly, scanning their thin, dirty coats. "We'll need to get them cleaned up." Emma's father was already bringing out a bucket of warm water and a few old towels. As they gently washed the creatures, Emma noticed how strange they looked up close. Their fur was soft but had an almost silky shimmer. Their paws were smaller than typical dogs, with delicate, almost human-like fingers. Luna blinked slowly at Emma, as if studying her, and Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. "Maybe there's some kind of wild animal," Jake suggested, stepping into the barn with a skeptical frown. "But they don't act like any I've ever seen." Despite his doubts, Jake stayed around to help. Over the next few days, the family took turns caring for Luma and Leo. They fed them soft food and tried to teach them simple commands, but the creatures never barked, growled, or even whined. Instead, they watched everything silently, their big eyes tracking movements like little mirrors reflecting something deeper. One afternoon, Emma tried to teach Luna to fetch a stick. She threw it gently across the barn, but Luna didn't chase it. Instead, she rose on her hind legs and stared up at the rafters, as if following a sound only she could hear. Emma blinked in surprise. Jake caught the moment on his phone, then zoomed in on Luna's glowing eyes in the grainy video. "Look at this," he said. "There's something weird going on here." That evening, Jake uploaded the video to an online forum for animal enthusiasts, hoping someone might identify the creatures. The responses were mixed. Most assumed they were just sick or feral dogs, but one comment stood out. It was from an anonymous user who wrote, "They're not yours to keep. Let them go before it's too late." Emma's mother brushed off the warning as internet nonsense, but Jake frowned and kept looking over the comments. Who would say something like that? It sounds like a threat. Meanwhile, Luna and Leo's behavior grew stranger. They didn't eat much and spent long hours sitting perfectly still, heads tilted as if listening to a silent song. At night, Emma sometimes caught glimpses of them staring out the barn window toward the distant woods, their eyes shimmering with an unearthly glow. One night, Emma woke to a soft humming sound that seemed to float in through her bedroom window. She slipped out of bed and crept down the hall to the barn, drawn by the strange melody. Peering through the cracks in the wood, she saw Luna and Leo standing upright, facing the sky. Their eyes glowed a soft blue, and the air around them shimmered with tiny sparks of light. Emma's heart pounded as the creatures began to hum in perfect harmony. It wasn't a growl or a howl. It was something else, something beautiful and haunting. She wanted to call out, but her voice caught in her throat. The creatures turned slowly toward the window and blinked in unison, as if acknowledging her presence. She stumbled back into the house, unsure of what she had just witnessed. Could Luna and Leo really be more than animals? Emma wasn't scared. She felt a strange calm, as if a secret had been shared just between them. As she lay in bed that night, Emma's thoughts raced. What were these beings? And why had they come to her farm, abandoned and silent? Somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning of a story far bigger than she could imagine. Days turned into a week, and Luna and Leo remained an enigma. The creatures never once barked or made any noise resembling a dog's usual sounds. They ate sparingly, preferring soft fruits Emma offered over the chicken scraps, and their unusual habits only deepened the family's fascination and unease. Jake had taken to filming them constantly, hoping to capture more of their strange behavior. One afternoon, while reviewing the footage, he noticed something odd. Luna's and Leo's eyes seemed to reflect a light that didn't belong to the barn. It flickered with colors, deep blues, soft purples, that shifted and shimmered in a way no ordinary animal's eyes would. Emma was delighted when she found Luna and Leo following her during the walk by the wheat fields. She tossed a small pebble, but instead of chasing it, the creatures lifted their heads and stared toward the sky. Emma followed their gaze and saw a lone hawk soaring high above, circling silently. Luna and Leo's eyes glowed faintly again. At dinner that night, Emma told her parents about the way Luna and Leo seemed to watch the sky instead of the ground. "It's like they're waiting for something," she said, her voice soft with wonder. Jake rolled his eyes. "You're imagining things. They're just weird dogs." But Emma shook her head. "No, it's something else." That night, curiosity led Emma to peek at the creatures through the barn window again. They were sitting side by side, their bodies perfectly still, eyes fixed on a dark spot beyond the tree line. Emma's breath caught when a soft pulse of blue light escaped from their eyes, flickering in the shadows like tiny stars. She wished she could understand what they were thinking. Slowly, she reached out a trembling hand and touched the window pane. The next day, Jake posted another video online, this time capturing Luna and Leo standing motionless with their heads tilted toward an invisible sound. The response was immediate. Messages flooded in from people all over. Some suggested the animals were suffering from an unknown illness. Others speculated they might be rare wild creatures, but a few warned of something stranger. One user wrote, "Those aren't dogs. They're watchers. You have to be careful." Another replied, "This reminds me of old legends about alien creatures who observe us but never interact." The comments unsettled the family, but Emma was fascinated. She spent hours drawing pictures of Luna and Leo, trying to capture the glow in their eyes and the strange elegance in their movements. She even made up stories about where they might have come from, hidden worlds beyond the stars, perhaps, or forgotten spirits of the earth. Her parents grew more protective, especially after the mysterious messages. One afternoon, Emma's father found a patch of the wheat field near the barn scorched in a perfect circle. No footprints or tire tracks led to or from it, just a clean, burned ring that seemed to hum with silent energy. "Someone's playing tricks," Jake grumbled, but his voice lacked conviction. Emma's mother was quieter. "This feels different," she admitted, "like something beyond our understanding." Emma watched Luna and Leo that evening as they sat near the burnt circle, eyes glowing steadily, unmoving but alert. The creatures seemed connected to the strange energy pulsing through the farm, as if they were guardians or messengers, waiting for something only they knew. That night, Emma's dreams were filled with shimmering lights and whispers in a language she couldn't understand. She woke with a start, feeling as if Luna and Leo had called her in some silent way. "I want to know who you really are," she whispered to the empty barn. The silence was her only answer. The burnt circle in the wheat field lingered in everyone's minds like a shadow that refused to fade. Emma's parents tried to brush it off as a strange accident, maybe a careless spark from the old tractor or a lightning strike they hadn't noticed. But Emma, Jake, and even her mother felt the air around the circle thrumming with something unexplainable. One morning, as the sun stretched warm fingers over the fields, Emma walked to the circle with a notebook in hand. She knelt down and traced her fingers along the scorched earth. The soil was still warm, but no ash remained, just perfect, unbroken soil in a strange pattern, almost like a symbol. Suddenly, a rustle in the trees caught her attention. She looked up just in time to see a sleek black SUV roll slowly down the dirt road toward the farmhouse. The vehicle's windows were tinted, and the tires left no clear tracks in the soft earth. Emma felt a prickling sensation on her skin, a warning she couldn't ignore. Her parents were in the kitchen when the SUV stopped beside the porch. A man stepped out, dressed sharply in a dark suit that looked out of place in the rural morning. His eyes were sharp, scanning everything like a hawk searching for prey. "I'm Agent Collins," he said smoothly, flashing a badge Emma barely saw before her father closed the door behind him. "I'm with the Department of Wildlife and Environmental Studies. We've had reports of unusual animal activity in this area." Emma's mother narrowed her eyes. "We haven't reported anything unusual," she said firmly. Agent Collins smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Not everyone knows what they're looking for. May I see these animals you've taken in?" The family exchanged uneasy glances, but Emma's father nodded. They led the agent to the barn where Luna and Leo lay quietly on the hay. The creatures lifted their heads but didn't move, watching the stranger with the same calm that unsettled Emma. Agent Collins crouched beside them, running a gloved hand lightly over Luna's shimmering fur. Had they made any sounds? Any vocalizations? Emma blinked. "No, they don't bark or whine. They hum sometimes." "Hum?" Collins repeated, eyebrows knitting. Emma's mother stepped forward. "Yes, last night, Emma saw them standing upright, humming softly toward the sky." The agent's eyes flicked toward the ceiling as if recalling a distant memory. "Have you noticed any changes in time? Anything unusual about your perception? Days feeling longer or shorter?" Emma's father frowned. "What kind of questions are these?" Agent Collins stood, smoothing his jacket. "Sometimes beings like these can affect human senses. We need to monitor them closely for the safety of everyone involved." Emma's mother's voice grew firm. "We're their caretakers. If you want to come back with a warrant, we'll cooperate. Until then, please leave." The agent smiled thinly, backing away. "Of course. But remember, these aren't just animals. They belong to a world beyond ours." As the SUV disappeared down the road, the family stood in silence. Emma's heart pounded with a mix of fear and fascination. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She crept to the barn and found Luna and Leo sitting side by side, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The soft hum filled the air again, vibrating with an intensity that seemed to reach through the walls. Emma reached out her hand. "Who are you?" she whispered. The creatures blinked slowly and then, in a voice that was both a hum and a whisper, spoke her name. Emma gasped, heart racing. "You know me?" Luna stepped forward, her blue eyes shimmering brighter. "We have watched you for a long time. Your kindness called us here." Emma's world shifted. These beings weren't just abandoned animals. There was something more, something ancient and mysterious. And whatever their purpose, Emma was now part of their story. Emma's breath caught in her throat as Luna's glowing eyes met hers. The gentle hum that filled the barn seemed to pulse with life, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. For a moment, the silence stretched, thick and electric. "We have watched you for a long time. Your kindness called us here," Luna said softly, her voice like a melody woven from wind and light. Emma's heart pounded as she knelt closer, eyes wide with wonder. "Watched me? Why? What do you mean?" Leo stepped forward beside Luna, his eyes shimmering with the same gentle glow. "You see us as we truly are," he said, "not just as creatures of fur and bone, but as beings from a place far beyond your world." Emma's mind raced. She thought about all the stories she had heard of strange visitors, of things that lurked just beyond the veil of the everyday. But here, in the quiet barn filled with hay and soft moonlight, it felt real, more real than anything she had ever known. Luna continued, "We are the Watchers, guardians of the natural balance between worlds. For centuries, we have protected the fragile boundary that keeps your world safe from harm." Emma's brows furrowed. "Why are you here then? Why were you abandoned?" Leo's eyes dimmed slightly, a shadow passing over his shimmering face. "Our mission was interrupted. We were forced to retreat when the balance was threatened, when a darkness began to spread in the places we once called home." Emma felt a pain of sadness for these creatures who were not just animals, but ancient guardians displaced by an unknown threat. "We came here seeking refuge," Luna explained, "and in you, we found a beacon of hope." Emma swallowed hard, the weight of their words settling around her like a cloak. "What can I do to help?" Leo looked at her with an intensity that made her heart flutter. "You must protect the boundary, Emma. Watch closely, listen carefully, and be ready." Emma nodded, determination sparking inside her. She would protect these creatures and the invisible world they guarded, even if she didn't fully understand what that meant. That night, as Emma lay in bed, the barn hummed softly with life. She felt connected to something vast and unknown, a secret whispered in the rustling wheat and the shimmering stars above. The next morning, Emma shared the secret with her family. Her parents listened in stunned silence, struggling to reconcile the magical truth with their practical minds. Jake, though skeptical, admitted he had noticed the creature's odd behavior and strange glow. Together, the family agreed to keep Luna and Leo safe, even if it meant facing the unknown. Days later, Emma awoke to find a small, glowing feather on her windowsill, soft as silk and shimmering with all the colors of the dawn. Luna and Leo were nowhere to be found in the barn. Emma clutched the feather close, feeling its warmth seep into her palm. A whisper echoed in her mind, "The watch begins." Emma knew then that her adventure had only just started, and that protecting the boundary was now her destiny. The glowing feather in Emma's hand was still warm as she hurried to the barn, hope flickering that Luna and Leo might have returned. But the barn was empty, silent except for the faint creak of the old wooden beams and the rustle of hay disturbed by the morning breeze. Her parents and Jake gathered quickly when she told them the creatures had vanished overnight. Emma showed them the feather, its shimmering colors casting soft light on their worried faces. "This is no ordinary feather," Emma's mother said softly, eyes scanning the iridescent glow. "It feels alive." Jake shook his head. "Maybe they're gone for good. Maybe someone found them and took them." Emma refused to believe that. Luna and Leo hadn't just disappeared. They had left a sign, a message she was meant to understand. Determined to find answers, Emma took the feather to Mr. Thompson, the town's oldest resident and a man known for his knowledge of local legends and strange happenings. Mr. Thompson studied the feather closely, his eyes narrowing behind thick glasses. "This," he said slowly, "is a marker of the Watchers. They say these feathers appear when the balance between worlds is in danger." Emma's heart pounded. "Do you know what kind of danger?" The old man shook his head. but his expression was grave. Long ago, there was a shadow, a darkness that threatened to swallow the earth and sky. The Watchers fought to keep it back, but it has a way of creeping in again when people forget to see the world with care and kindness. Emma thought about the scorched circle in the field, the strange agent who visited, and the growing unease she felt around the farm. It all seemed connected. That night, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, not by Luma and Leo, but by something else. A cold presence lingered beyond the trees, unseen but heavy in the air. She decided to stay up and keep watch. Hours passed in quiet tension until a sudden rustling shattered the stillness. Emma peered into the darkness and saw flickering shadows moving quickly between the trees. Her heart raced. She grabbed a flashlight and cautiously stepped outside. The beams caught glimpses of strange shapes, figures that moved with unnatural speed and stealth, almost blending with the night itself. Emma's voice trembled. "Who's there?" The shadows paused, then withdrew silently into the woods, leaving only the whisper of the wind behind. She knew then that the darkness the Watchers had warned about was coming, and that Luna and Leo's absence might be tied to this growing threat. Emma's family rallied around her, helping to secure the farm and keep watch through the nights. They barricaded windows and set up small alarms, determined to protect their home and the mysterious creatures they now loved like family. But Emma understood that this was more than a battle for their farm. It was a fight for something larger, something invisible to most but vital to the very soul of their world. As the days passed, strange signs appeared everywhere: trees with blackened bark, animals avoiding the fields, and an eerie silence that fell at dusk. Emma felt the weight of her responsibility growing heavier with each sunset. She clutched the glowing feather close, drawing strength from its warmth and the memory of Luna and Leo's watchful eyes. The secret was no longer hers alone. The boundary was under threat, and Emma had to be ready to face the darkness coming for it. The days grew darker, even under the bright sun. Emma could feel it in the air, a creeping chill that wasn't just the weather changing. The farm's usual sounds were muted. Birds no longer sang from the trees, and the gentle rustling of the wheat was replaced by an eerie stillness. Emma stayed vigilant, watching the edge of the woods from the porch with the glowing feather clenched tightly in her hand. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat, as if alive and aware of the approaching danger. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Emma noticed a strange movement near the tree line. Shadows twisted unnaturally, moving with a silent speed that made her heart pound in fear and determination. "Mom! Dad, Jake!" she called urgently, the worry in her voice sharp. Her family rushed outside, eyes wide as the dark shapes advanced slowly toward the farm. Emma's father grabbed a flashlight, shining it toward the moving figures, but the beams seemed to be swallowed by the darkness itself. "They're not animals," Jake said, voice low. "There's something else, something darker." The family retreated inside, locking doors and windows as the shadows circled the farm like hungry predators. Emma held the feather up, watching it glow brighter, casting soft blue light into the corners of the room. Suddenly, the humming began again, low, rhythmic, and strangely comforting. It was the same sound Luna and Leo had made. Emma's heart leaped. "They're trying to reach us." Her mother's eyes glistened. "But how? They're gone." Emma took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Concentrating on the feathers, she whispered, "Luna, Leo, if you can hear me, we need you." The humming grew louder, filling the room with a warm glow that seemed to push back the shadows pressing against the windows. Suddenly, the barn door creaked open by itself. Emma and her family rushed to the door, hearts pounding. Outside stood Luna and Leo, their fur gleaming like moonlight, eyes radiant with a powerful blue glow. They stepped forward, their presence filling the night with calm and strength. The shadows recoiled, twisting and writhing as if in pain. Emma watched in awe as Luna and Leo raised their heads, emitting a luminous pulse that spread across the fields and into the darkness beyond. The dark shapes hissed and vanished, retreating into the forest with one last desperate cry. Emma's father let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "They saved us." Emma smiled, tears shining in her eyes. They came back. The next days were filled with hope and healing. Luna and Leo stayed close, their presence a reassuring glow in the twilight hours. Emma understood now that the creatures were not just guardians, but part of a larger cosmic balance, watchers who had returned when the world needed them most. But Emma also knew this was just one battle won. The darkness had not disappeared, only retreated. She looked out over the fields, the feather warm in her hand, and whispered a promise to Luna, Leo, and the world beyond. We will protect the boundary, no matter what comes next. The dawn after the night of shadows brought a quiet peace over the farm. The sun's golden light spilled across the fields, warming the earth and chasing away the last tendrils of darkness. Emma stood at the edge of the wheat field, the glowing feathers still nestled in her palm, feeling its steady warmth. Luna and Leo were nearby, their furs shimmering softly in the morning light. They moved with grace and calm, as if the battle had strengthened them, not weakened. Emma watched them with awe, grateful for their return and the bond they had forged. Over the next few days, Emma's family noticed a change, not just in Luna and Leo, but in themselves. The air around the farm seemed alive with a quiet energy. The crops grew stronger, the animals returned to the fields, and even the old barn seemed to hum softly with new life. Emma felt that same energy inside her. The secret she discovered wasn't just about the mysterious creatures or the threats from the shadows. It was about hope, connection, and the power of kindness to protect even the most fragile boundaries between worlds. One afternoon, Mr. Thompson visited again, carrying an old leather-bound book. He smiled as he handed it to Emma. This has been in my family for generations. It tells the story of the Watchers, guardians who appear when the world needs them most. Emma opened the book, tracing the faded illustrations of beings much like Luna and Leo, glowing softly, watching over the earth. A passage caught her eye. When the boundary is threatened, the Watchers call upon those who see beyond, those with hearts open and brave. Together, they keep the balance, for the world depends on the harmony of all things. Emma closed the book and looked at Luna and Leo, who nuzzled her gently. She knew her life had changed forever. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma stood by the barn one last time. Luna and Leo's eyes glowed brighter than ever. "We're ready," Emma whispered. Luna's voice was soft but clear. "The world is vast and full of mysteries. Your kindness opened the door for us. Now you carry the light forward." Leo added, "The boundary will always need protectors. You are one of them." Emma smiled, feeling a surge of courage and purpose. The farm was no longer just a home. It was a gateway to something greater. As Luna and Leo stepped into the fading light, their forms shimmered and stretched, becoming radiant beings of light that slowly lifted off the ground. They floated higher, merging with the stars above, leading behind a trail of sparkling blue light. Emma watched until the last glimmer faded, feeling a quiet strength settle inside her. Her family gathered around, sharing a moment of wonder and hope. The farm, the creatures, and the invisible boundary between worlds had become a story of courage and connection, one that Emma knew she would carry with her always. The night sky was clearer than ever, filled with stars that seemed to wink down like old friends. Emma whispered into the breeze, "Thank you." And somewhere beyond the stars, the Watchers watched on,